There is, this moment, I think it's fair to say, a broad frustration with what we just saw from a handful of Senate Democrats led by the leader, Chuck Schumer. Everyone from Senator Bernie Sanders to former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger and lots of people in between oppose the effort to allow Trump's continued assault on the federal government. Folks wanted to draw a line in the sand and say we cannot operate under the normal set of political rules here. And as painful as shutting down the government might be, the Democrats, as the opposition, needed to use any leverage available to them. Leader Schumer and 9 other Democratic senators saw it differently. They all voted to move to a vote on the shutdown vote to continue to fund the government. It's dispiriting. It's even infuriating to a lot of folks. But we've been saying on this program, the bulwark against tyranny in this country is not politicians. It's us. All of us in every walk of life who hold fast to the American promise of government of, by, and for the people, not the debased whims of a wannabe dictator and billionaire weirdos. No kings, not ever. If there was any good news on this otherwise bleak day, it's every single hour of every single day, folks are waking up, and there is a dawning awareness that it's time to fight back. Donald Trump's project is as clear as day. He wants to dismantle the system of self-governance and checks and balances and to create a presidential dictatorship that does not depend on the will of the people. His model is Turkey, Russia, Hungary, places where the strong man rules no matter what, and you don't get a say, whether there are elections or not. That is his goal. It's clear as day. He basically enunciates it daily. And everyone else needs to be asking, how do you stop that from happening? How can you use whatever nonviolent tools are at your disposal to stop this unlawful power grab? How can we, as Americans, as supporters of democracy and the Constitution, build a united front across ideological lines in defense of marginalized people, the ones he's coming for first, in an almost literal reenactment of the famous Niemöller poem, in defense of working and middle-class people against the pillaging of oligarchs, heck, in defense of elites and powerful people who are using their platforms and power to preserve the American way of life. Right now, it doesn't seem like Democratic leadership understands that yet. But in many ways, and I know this sounds weird to say it right now, they are simply not what's important here. Stay focused on what's important. People are what's important. We're what's important. Public opinion is what's important. Civil society is what's important. And it's getting activated and organized every single day. Every day, the movement is growing. I mean, Republican representatives are being told to stop holding town halls because their own voters will not stop showing up to yell at them about what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing.
I was proud to vote recently for the House budget resolution, which provides the framework to we should abolish the U.S. Department of Education. The decisions need to be made back on the state level.
I believe that the president is very supportive of Ukraine. Like him or not, Elon Musk has brought a lot of really smart people to Doge.
And you wonder why folks don't want to do these town halls.
Wonder. The protests against Musk don't end there. There's something really remarkable happening right now. I'm not sure people have really quite gotten their arms around this. We are seeing this organic bottom-up movement against Musk's signature company, Tesla. Some activists just put up a website with a simple message, right? Sell your Teslas, dump your stock. And then an entire Tesla takedown movement has sprung up in response. They've got a map where all the protests are planned all across the country. It's been happening for about a month. This weekend alone, there are more than 100 protests planned at dealerships, Tesla dealerships across the country, from Brooklyn to Toledo, Dallas to Grand Rapids, Raleigh, dozens more. There are even, as you might see there, a handful planned in Canada and the UK. And I'm going to tell you something. I wager next weekend there will be even more, and the weekend after that more, because this is growing every single day. And it's not Democratic leadership in Congress organizing the protests. It's just everyday folks who are fed up and want to make their voices heard. And it's having an insanely outsized effect. I mean, Tesla's sales are just cratering. The stock price has seen all of its post-election gains vanish. Musk's personal wealth has declined by more than $125 billion since the beginning of the year. That's because of this. And that's why Donald Trump had to turn the White House into a car lot this week and cut an ad for his co-president's fleet of vehicles. While the Attorney General of the United States effectively tried to threaten folks with jail time if they voiced their dissatisfaction with Musk's company.
If you're going to touch a Tesla, go to a dealership, do anything, you better watch out because we're coming after you.
Wow.
And
Well,
if you're funding this, we're coming after you. We're going to find out who you are.
If you go to a dealership? No. We've all got a First Amendment right to stand on a sidewalk with signs outside a dealership. Doesn't matter what Pine Bondi says. By all accounts, this is not being funded by some big funder. It's a grassroots movement. Some people are organizing. They're putting up a website. And at any rate, it doesn't seem like those scare tactics are working. I would hazard they only make people want to protest more. Today, hundreds of veterans and their family members and loved ones rallied near Capitol Hill in protest of Musk's cuts to the federal government, many of which target veterans who worked at the government and have been fired or are serviced by the government directly. Yesterday, 100 demonstrators got arrested after hundreds more occupied the lobby of Trump Tower in Manhattan to protest the unlawful detention of the Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's taken a little while for people to sort of understand what they're seeing, because it's shocking and it's surreal, but it's just the beginning. There's a lot more work to be done. So yes, some of the Democratic leadership is disappointing a lot of people right now, but they're elected to represent us. They're going to follow what the people do. And so we have to show them what needs doing. Faz Shakir served as a senior advisor to Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. He's currently executive director of More Perfect Union and a senior advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders. Rebecca Traister is a writer at large in New York Magazine. She wrote about the shutdown fight on her Substack. They both join me now. Faz, let me start with you because, you know, I'm always very aware of the fact that in politics, particularly when it comes to sort of legislative actions and tactics, there really is a lot of backseat driving and a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking and a lot of like, you should have thrown the ball to that guy who was open. And it's like, yeah, well, it's a little harder than it looks. So I'm genuinely aware of that. Like, I know that's true, and I've covered the Hill long enough. You worked for Harry Reid. You're advisor Bernie Sanders. Like, you're someone who really has lived these kinds of decisions, has seen these tactics up close. What do you think about the decision by Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats today to vote for cloture to allow basically the Republicans to pass their bill?
So frustrated, but the reason I'm frustrated, and I think why a lot of people are, is there was no negotiating demands, no governing demands. In a normal situation, if you know you've got the votes to either pass or not pass a Republican-led effort, you compel Donald Trump to sit down with you. But you only compel him to sit down with you if you know what you want to ask for.
Right.
And when you're at the table and you're asking for things, you have to come up with some pretty damn popular items, and you have to govern. This is not a play dead strategic retreat. You can do it that way, and I understand why some people want to do it that way because it absolves you of this conversation. But if you play alive and you go for it, you got to have a compelling demand. I mean, simply, I was saying no Social Security office closures in America, zero. Right? No veterans clinics will be closed, zero. Right? Make some demands and then say, Trump, you got to sit down with us. And now you're projecting something to America.
Yeah, that's really well put. Rebecca, you also you sort of wrote about your frustration here. And one of the things I thought I saw you say, and this is really, I think, ironic, is, you know, Democrats have been defenders of the filibuster because they say, look, it's sort of that door swings both ways. When we're in the minority, we're going to want to have the filibuster. Here was a cloture vote, a filibusterable bill. One of those things they need Democrats, and they just seem to kind of give that power away.
They didn't just seem to give it away. They gave it away. Here was this weapon that they claim we can't give up. We couldn't get rid of the filibuster because how else will we oppose the next administration? Okay, so you've got your weapon and you literally failed to use it. But I also want to point out that one of the reasons that I'm glad that you talked about this protest movement and the building protest movement and the ordinary people who are out on the streets. And think about what that means. Because when you're talking about those protesters occupying Tesla dealerships or occupying Trump Tower to protest the horrifying, chilling detainment of Mahmoud Khalil, You are talking about people who have other jobs, who are taking risks, who have families, who are giving up their Thursdays, their Saturdays, who are standing out in the rural red community that I spend a lot of time in Maine. You know, very conservative community, people on the street in the slush with signs and pride flags and Ukraine flags, protesting from all kinds of ideological corners. This is not their job. They are taking risks to stand up in opposition to an administration that, by the way, is threatening to classify protest as terrorism.
Yes.
This is the risk that they're willing to take. And the Democratic Party leadership, we know that they're not in the majority, and yet they are the only layer of powerful opposition that exists. It is literally their day job to do this kind of thing. And they did not do it. And so you have the contrast between the ordinary people out there who are taking their time, their energy to work in opposition to this truly chilling gutting of our federal government and dynamiting of our civil rights infrastructure. And then you have the people whose job it is to oppose that administration. And in some way today, they legitimized it by voting for the CR to go through. And that is devastating and enraging to me. And I believe that you're right, that it is going to be enraging to those people who are out on the streets and have been out on the streets for these past weeks and months.